What's up? What's up? What's up? We are excited to be back with you again for another edition of Involved Dad and Genesee County Friend of the Court Lunch and Learn with Sean and Tony. So, like we said, man, we are going to be consistent and want to just support the community and those who are agencies and just people who need information surrounding friend of the court, family matters, right? No pun intended. Literally like family issues, but at the same time, we want to bring value to community partners and community agencies. Working with government agencies, and we want to show the world that it can work, right? And when we work together, we make a larger impact. And so I'm just excited for us to be able to continue to do these lunch and learns, Tony. So how you
Yeah,
feeling today?
I'm feeling good. And yeah, no, I love the fact that, you know, with both your audience and those who follow Friend of the Court and stuff like that, well, we're talking about parents, but we're also talking about people who work in this field, in the human services field, right? So, and I think what's interesting is a lot of times what parents need is same thing that people who work in the human services field need, right? It's a lot of the we need a lot of the same tools, we need a lot of the same resources, and so hopefully we'll be able to cover something every time we get together. That's something that's valuable, and it's a lunch and
Yes.
learn. So we always got to talk about what we eat for lunch
Yes.
too.
Yes.
And
And I'm
you and I are getting healthy. Last time we
yes.
talked, we're getting healthy. We're we're working on some self care there.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we're gonna both have better things than we used to about what we're doing for lunches then.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, I'm excited. We gonna have to get some endorsement money. We telling people what we're eating. But today, I'm eating pita way. I'm eating pita way, and I'm gonna be, more healthy. So I got pita way, so I'm excited. So as soon as we get done here, I'm gonna go eat my pita way.
That's excellent. That's
Yeah.
excellent.
How about
Yeah,
you?
turkey sandwich. Turkey sandwich.
Okay, that's
Mm,
healthy. That's
yeah,
healthy. That's
that's my
healthy.
healthy. That's my healthy stuff. Yeah, no,
Good stuff.
um, we're doing much better than our usual. Like didn't eat, or we just only had like caffeine. So I'm happy to see the improvement. I like to see us taking care of each other and take care of ourselves here.
I love it. I love it, man. I love it, brother. So yeah, I'm gonna grub soon as we get done, brother.
Good, good.
So yeah, man. You and I talked about how we believe is really important to when we are working with not only those that we serve and that we work alongside with, but we believe that this topic that we want to talk about today is valuable for more than one reason, right? And I do a training, and I know you've done trainings as well surrounding various leadership styles. And one of the tools that I've subscribed to, that I use, at least one of the tools, um, is through Advanced Insights. And they have, these three components, one being disc, one attributes, and the other values. And those three, tools really help individuals with understanding why they do what they do, how they do it, and just what's the value behind it, right? Like what motivates them and what drives them. And working with fathers in particular, Tony, I've used this tool many times. And the way that I decided to use this tool is to help the fathers to understand how they how, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Understand
yeah.
how they how. And once they begin to understand how they how, now they have a better picture on approaching their children and their significant other, right? Because a
Mhm.
lot of times they may get upset or angry because their child is not as aggressive, their child is not as boisterous as they would want them to be. They becomes frustrated, right? And so the
Right.
better I understand who I am, uh, I begin to give myself more options. And I'll say that
Yes.
again. When I better understand myself, I give myself more options.
Hmm.
Right?
And I think another way that think about it is like you this is Brené Brown one. You either you know your story, and then you own your own story instead of your story owning you, right?
I want you to
This,
explain that.
this
Explain that, please.
so like when you know your why, you know your story, you know why it is, then you can control that narrative, right? Because it's something that you understand, and it's not just something that's happening to you. You recognize that I am this type of person, and this is why I'm this type of person. This is the story what's happened through my life, and I'm using that to my advantage. A lot of the we use strengths in our office, and we talk about the strengths of everybody in the office, and a lot of those strengths are things that we develop over time, right? Because of what has happened in our lives, and we build on those strengths over time, and then we can build and build and build and get better. But a lot of those strengths are part of our story, right?
Yeah.
uh, if I'm a peacekeeper, what caused me to be a peacekeeper? Sure, probably I came with some natural disposition to some of that, but I bet you, and I can point to my story because I own my story and I know my story, that a lot of my peacekeeper stuff comes from my own experiences in my own life and childhood, and those sorts of things, and I take those forward and I own it, right? It's not happening to me. I'm owning this, and I'm taking it, and I'm using it. And so
Yeah.
but I think to your point of like that, you gotta own that how, right? It's
Yeah.
the same thing,
Yeah.
right?
No, that's really good, man. That's really good. So, so when we looking at, just working with, me in particular, when I'm working with these fathers, and this tool, if we look at the disc tool, right? This disc, is broken down to four components. One is a D, one an I, one S, one a C, right? And so people are like, man, what is that? And over the next few weeks, man, we'll really break this down. But when I'm dealing with a father especially who has an old school mentality, where he believes that he needs to be very direct, very aggressive, like, a man's man. Like, we approaching things from, we don't show any chinks in our armor. We don't relent, right? It's not a whole lot of wiggle room, right? Just
Mhm.
very like, yo, you do this, you do it. It's always attack mode. And so what happens, man, is that when people approach other people with that same expectation, and somebody is a little bit more deliberate, somebody is a little bit more patient in their approach and making the decision, that father or that person can become very frustrated with the peacekeeper, right?
Hmm.
Because the
Right.
peacekeeper is thinking about everybody else, right? Because they're saying, no, we will make a decision, but our decision will be based off of everybody else and how does it impact everybody else.
Right.
Whereas that D personality, which we call an eagle, right? And other people have different, examples of them. But that person can be very frustrated with those that do not approach problems and making decisions like they do, right? They look
Hmm.
at them like, yo, you soft, you weak, right? And
Yeah.
so that person who is not soft or not weak, they just don't do it the way you do it. They just don't
Yeah.
approach problems the way that you approach them, right? Me
Yeah.
knowing you personally, Tony, when you make a decision, you calculate everything. You think about
Hmm.
the processes, the systems, like, you thinking about all the way through. Me,
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, let's build it. Let's just jump and we build as we go,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So my thing is that it can be easy for me to get frustrated and and think that Tony is hating on me, because Tony is like, listen, I just need us to slow down. Let's wait. Let's come up with a process. And
Yes.
I'm like, listen, no, let's just go.
Yeah. Let's go.
right? And so
Yeah,
that builds animosity and could build, just lack of trust. And, and that happens a lot of times in relationships
definitely.
and, between spouses, man.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
So that's just an example that I wanted to share when we talk about leadership is that you have to know how you howl.
yes, yes. No, I love that, and the tool we use, the strengths tool,
Yeah.
has those same things, right? So you got your commander, that's the
Yep.
person who's telling you out like it is,
The D.
and then your peacekeeper is like, well, I don't know if we need to like be so blunt about this, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then you've got these other ones that are more about like, do I go or do I think about it a lot beforehand? And then those are two different strengths on kind of two sides of the coin. And the thing is like, so you and I've worked together for years, and we don't. One of the things I think is important, you don't need to have somebody be the same as you
Yes.
on your team and for you to be a success. You need to be aware of what
Yes.
the other person on your team is, so that you can figure out where you're going to be able to have that, like, that mesh, and you're going to be able to fill each other's voids, because you don't want everybody to be the same on your team. If you have only D's on your team, or even if you're just 100% D all the time at home,
Yes.
well, there's going to be situations where that's not going to be the best thing,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So you got to figure out either how to balance that, or you got to figure out how to have people on your team that are filling in those voids that maybe you in voids, or whether it's just something to recognize. And we all work in a team environment, so like let's recognize that, and let's take advantage of that. So
Yes.
yeah, that's
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for tapping in, Fahim. What's up, baby? Glad to see you on,
yeah.
man. Fahim, man, he's doing an incredible job, man. He is a father who has gone through the program, and if I can say somebody who's an amazing man who I've seen grow is him. And actually, he's in our leadership where he is developing more skills and all that type of stuff to use even this tool to help other people, man. So so it's important, man, for individuals to learn, how and why they do what they do, right?
Yeah.
Because it gives me more options. What up, Deontay? It gives us more options, right? And so, I use Deontay for an example in this example what I'm talking about. So Deontay worked with kids, right? So he works with kids, and just think about if he is a high D, somebody who's a commander, and if he's not aware of all of the children that are in that room when he's trying to teach them a skill of basketball,
Yeah.
if he's treating everybody like they are commander, if they putting expectations on these kids that they are a commander or a high D, and they don't produce the way that he want them to produce, he can crush those kids, right?
Yeah,
Because that
definitely.
kid is not comfortable commanding. They're
Yeah.
comfortable being Robin, supporting people.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times what happens, even with agencies, is that what we do, we hire people a lot of times, and we make them change their behaviors to fit the role.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? Like this role needs this type of person. Well, the person we hire, they can't, provide all of those things for that role. But what happens is not that person is not qualified or they're not good, even as a coach, right? But what happens that you surround yourself with a great support system that will fill those areas.
Yes. Yes.
Tone, I worked at the state of Michigan for many years, and I was an administrator.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I was over, watch this, bro. One of the things I was over that I had to manage was policies and procedures. You
It's a good
talking
fit
about
for you.
you,
Good fit for you.
you talking about somebody who is a high I, who loves communicating with people. We can sit down and have a conversation, about this policy. We're gonna get distracted because I'm gonna talk about the game. I'm gonna try to motivate you. I can't stay focused long enough for that task. So why would you give me this task? So what I had to do is that I had to use my ability to connect with people, and I had to ask people to come and help me
Mm-hmm.
to that had that skill set so I can be productive in my role. That
Sure.
role wasn't a good fit for me.
Yeah. So I mean, I think one of the things that that's such a good example about how just because, so sometimes people think, well, if I'm going to be a leader, I've got to be a high D, or if I'm going to be a policy person, I've got to be a high I. That's not necessarily. It's not like, oh, I can't do this job because I've got these certain attributes or traits, right? Right. Or these are my strengths. You recognize the moments when like that strength is going to be a thing for you, that is going to be a good thing for you. You
Yes.
are also going to recognize the moments when, hey, this is going to be a little bit of a struggle. I'll do it. And I'm going to play my role that I need to play, but I'm going to struggle in this moment. And
Struggle.
I know that I'm going to have people who are going to support me in that moment, because I know that this is something that is a challenge for me. And, and so that's one of the things I think is important to recognize, is that, and the other part of that too is, you're not all one thing or all another thing, right? None of us all,
Yes. Yes.
right? So
Yes.
don't get like, you can be a person who loves talking to people and be excellent at policy, right?
Absolutely.
And you can be a person who really needs to think things through to the nth degree, and love talking to a crowd, right?
Yes.
You are not any one thing. We are all many,
Yep.
multifaceted. And
Yep.
so but if you don't know yourself, then how are you showing up?
Yes.
How are you able to show up for either your family, your job, whatever the thing that you need to show up for? How are you showing up if you don't know what you bring, right?
That's
What
good,
is the
man.
thing that you bring to the table?
That's good, Tone. What's up, Big Neely? Good to see you, man. Listen, Tone, you bring up a really good point, right? And I think about your agency, right? The Friend of the Court. Just think about
Yep.
this. A lot of times, you guys can't hire based off of what their assessments were, right? You
Right.
can
Don't
consider
do
it,
that.
you know what I mean?
Yep.
But you can't do that, right?
Yep.
But this is the thing. Just think about, you take somebody who is a introvert that struggles with interacting with people.
Mm-hmm.
They can do the job when you having people come to the court and all that type of stuff. They can do the job, but they may struggle with interacting with the people across from them. And guess what? The people who's coming up to the window to be serviced, they're automatically saying, you know what? This person don't like me. They acting funny. They are this, they are that. All of these things, but they don't know that that person is an introvert and it's not super comfortable for
Sure.
them to be on the front lines to interact with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
So a good example with the D thing. So if you're a low D, I'm not as familiar with this because you are, but so if you're a low D, that means you're very low on the commander skill, I
Yes,
think.
you're
So
more reserved. Yes.
so in that scenario, at least on the strength side of things, that means that when somebody is direct with you, that can be a really big challenge, right? So what we can
Yes.
find, if you're low on the commander skill, or commander strength, then maybe you're going to have a little bit of more of a challenge if you're in a situation where you're going to get yelled at, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
Like,
man.
so I think even more so than like the introvert extrovert thing, but certainly that's true too. Like, are you going to get drained or are you going to get energized? But there's different types of introversion, extroversion, right? Like the type of extroversion I have, put me in a group of 20, 50 people, that's where like that extroversion comes out, big time for me. And I know that's true for you. Put yourself in a crowded room talking to people, that's where that extroversion like really comes out, right?
Yep.
And so, but extroversion doesn't always look like that. Some people,
Yes.
high extroverts, hate being in presenting or hate being in front of a crowd, right? And so just totally, you got to know how that breaks down for you, because it doesn't always look the same way. But yeah, one of the
That's
things that we
true.
definitely know is like, if you're the type of person who is like low on commander, you don't really enjoy that, you don't understand why people would be so like abrasive or upfront or whatever, there's going to be places that are, we're going to need to make sure that we're assigning you to the right place in the office, right?
And
And
you,
that's the
man,
beauty of the work. Of like, just if that's not your thing, I'm not going to put you on the front counter, right?
yes.
Maybe
Or the
the
welcoming
maybe
committee, the
yeah,
hugging committee. You're not going to be on that hug.
yeah, exactly.
you know.
But there's work to be done that's maybe
Yes.
behind the scenes, and it's super valuable to have somebody who's maybe who that's okay for them, right?
Yep.
That's they can find that spot. And so it's really knowing your team, whether you work in a team, whether you, or like we said, or you're a family, knowing how everybody intersects comes big time, because you can really say like, oh, the reason those two are at each other, that's why, oh, that
Yes.
person's, I got a commander and somebody else who very low on commander, for example, or high D low D, sit working with each other, and sometimes that's going to play to our advantage because they're going to work well with each other. But sometimes they're going to get one's going to get steamrolled, and we need to
Yes.
be aware of that too.
Yes. And I want to go back to one of the things you said earlier, the example of somebody who's low on the commander scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
They low commander, they low D. And so when somebody approached them, very aggressively, they may not like conflict and confrontation. But this is the one thing that we realize is that that person may adapt, right? And we talk about adaptive behavior, right? And so it's okay to adapt, but the problem is, listeners, just hear me out on this. The problem is when we adapt in a role too long, that's when it becomes a problem, because now we are manufacturing a behavior to do a task. That's when we get burnout, because we have to stay in a role that's not authentically us. We get overwhelmed. So me doing policy all day, yeah, I can do it, but guess what happens? It's going to take me 50 hours versus somebody who is very good at it, take them 2 hours. So I'll get burnt out in doing that. And so another thing is that when you adapt, sometime that person will now, he or she is that low commander, but now they may bark back, and now they don't know how to be aggressive without it being offensive. So somebody who's a commander, they know how to drive because that's their natural habitat. Somebody who adapts to a commander is not authentic. So it can come out looking wild, and it can come out being offensive and different. So it's important to know what is the thing that causes you, like, what is your blind spot? It's like driving in the car. What's your blind spot? And so once I realize that's my blind spot, now I need to shelter and put things in place, right? To number one, help me succeed, be more comfortable in this role. If I do have to adapt, it's more natural because now I'm aware of me doing it, right? So I have to, every month, my wife is asking me for documents and paperwork and all that type of stuff. But I know every month I have to do it.
Sure.
So I prepare myself to do it, even though I don't want to do it. But it's only for a short period of time.
Yeah.
But if I had to do that all month, bro, InvolvedDad, Family Matters, we won't be successful. I need to connect with people. That's my thing.
So our version of that, so we can use different.
Yeah.
We're using two different models to kind of come at the same thing, because so our version of that is you've got your natural talent times your investment equals your total strength, right?
Yes.
So and the example I use is like, I have no natural talent for basketball, right? As you know, I'm not a tall dude, right? So, and this has been true my entire life. So, no matter how much time and energy I put in as a kid to basketball, I did not have the natural talent. So, if you put in the investment of 5 is the maximum investment, and you times that by 0 for natural talent, you're still going to end up with 0, right? So playing to something that you're incredibly weak on isn't necessarily going to yield great results. Now, if you already have a natural talent for something and then you invest in it, then say on a 1 to 5 scale, you have the natural talent of a 5 for public speaking. talking to Sean Hart here. So he's got a natural talent of 5 for it, but he invests his energy into that. He's going to be able to get a 25, which is the highest score you can get,
That's
right?
good.
And
That's
so,
good.
and so taking that concept of like, yeah, do we need to sometimes have to play a role and we have to work on something that's not a super strength for us? Certainly. But what if you're playing into strengthening up your natural talents? You're focusing on your natural talents. Where you can go is phenomenal, right? Professional athletes, they have a natural talent, and then they put in tons and tons of investment. I'm talking to an athlete here. I know the type of investment it takes in. That's where things can really take off for
Yep.
you. If you don't have that natural talent, like, look, you can be at the gym just as much as the person next to you, but if you don't have the natural talent, it's,
It's
you'll
gonna
do
be
well,
hard.
but
Yeah.
you're not gonna be able to be as great, right?
Yeah.
You're not gonna
That's
be able to
good.
as great. So,
That's good.
so I do think that that's thing is like, when you know that you have something, a natural talent for something, then you can focus your energy on that. You're going to be more fulfilled. You're going to avoid that burnout, like we talked about. But you're also, I think, going to, hopefully going to be able to see the gains,
That's
right? Which
good.
that's whether you're serving people or you're serving your family, whatever you're trying to do, you want to focus on things where you can get the most, the most benefit for
That's
everybody.
good, man. And so, in closing tone, I'll let you get the last word, man. But I think this is really important from the standpoint that when I look at Involved Dad and the friend of the court, Genesee County friend of the court, how we collaborate is that you respect my gifts and my talents, vice versa. I respect your gifts, your talents, and your role. And when I can appreciate your role and what you bring to the table and not get frustrated, not get discouraged, not thinking that you're trying to hold me back or vice versa, or I'm moving too fast, right? Because that's the thing, right? Is that
Mm.
I need to be aware of how. So I know that if what I'm about to embark upon is going to take some time to develop, my natural wants to move like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it doesn't move that fast, right, I can get discouraged and I can get angry and I can get mad. But going into the relationship, if I'm aware, now I can position myself, right, to not become frustrated, angry, or upset. Now I can appreciate
Yes.
the party that I'm engaging with, right?
Yeah.
So that's my thing, man. If you're working with another entity, another agency, community, working with government agency, or however, find out and really appreciate it just because it's different than yours. And this is one thing I want to say, and this is on a natural, right? Even when you go home, people tell us or used to tell us to treat people how we want to be treated. I understand the golden rule. I understand that. But I would rather you treat people how they want to be treated versus you treating them how you would treat them if it was you. Because how
Yeah.
I want to be treated is different than how they want to be treated.
Yeah.
Right? So it's
I like that.
important for me to know how they want to be treated. And once I discover that, then it is my responsibility to do such.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tone?
And I think you hit on two things there so key. You and I, our organizations have intersected or interacted for several years, and one of the things that we've tried to do is communicate, hey, this is going to take a minute, right? This is going to this And then there are times where we can say, yeah, we can move on that, right? We can make that happen quickly. There's sometimes where you might reach out and say, hey, can we do this week? And I said, yes, I can do it today.
Yep.
And then there are some times where the answer is, can we do this month? And the answer is, we'll be lucky if we get this year,
Yep.
right? And and so it's being honest about
Yep.
that, and being clear. So communicating so key when you're talking about community organizations and working with entities. But that same thing is so true. And you and I have talked about this a lot, about families engaging with the system or engaging with community partners. Be very clear about what that agency or that community partner can do. What
Yes.
Just like every person has its strengths and its attributes, every organization has its strengths and its attributes. And
Yes.
so one of the things that you and I've talked about a lot is like, if you come to the front of the court expecting a completely different agency, and somebody who's going to go into court and file motions and basically be like legal services. If you're expecting front of the court to be legal services, you're going to be frustrated, right? And so we, as the agencies who are providing this information, need to do a better job and are trying to do a better job of explaining what we can and can't do, who we are, what our strengths are, and then we need to have that good communication with whoever we're serving to be able to be clear that this is what I can do. This is what
Yes.
my strengths are. This is what my role is. Um, and no matter how much time and energy I put in it, I'm never going to be what this other agency is, and that's okay. We can recognize that. So
I
um,
love it.
it's the same thing whether you are the agency, you're the person engaging with that agency, or you're talking about your family or your community partners. Is good communication about who we are, who you are, and how does that all fit together. Because going back to our partnership of our agencies, we've had to be very clear. I can't do that,
Yep.
right? And or I can do that, but this is how that's going to
Yep.
look. But if we're not clear about that, then it's going to make it very difficult. And that's true at home. That's true
Yes.
with
I
kids.
love
That's
it.
true within every other
Yes,
place too,
everywhere,
right?
man. No, I love it, Tone. Shakita says the link to building more in depth and interpersonal relationships. That's true, right? And listen, we love that you guys are tapping in. She said is pushed forward toward efforts to treat people how they wish to be treated. Yep, top tier relationship building skills. Absolutely. Treat people how they want to be treated versus treating them how you would want to be treated. Two totally different things. So, listen, thank you guys for tuning in for another Lunch and Learn with Involved Dad and Genesee County Friend of the Court, Sean Hart and Tony McDowell. We will see you guys in 2 weeks.
Thank you.